heating.
What about materials that people use in home building these days? Because there's a lot of recycled materials going on. What makes a lot of sense from your point of view?
Well, it has to do with the embodied energy in a building material for the most part. What we want to do is look at how much energy it took to make it and transport it. And so the more locally available materials, the better off you are. And that goes back to what I talked about with historic homes. There was a reason that they used local materials. They obviously couldn't truck stuff in from halfway across the country 150 years ago. And so the styles of homes evolved based on what was locally available and what the response was to the local climate.
So something like a brick bungalow is there because we have plenty of clay soil and plenty of bricks.
Yeah, that's the reason it came about to begin with. And a bungalow is a great example because it can be expanded up into the attic. The basement can be built out. They were great homes, and they can expand with the size of the family as it grows.
What about materials like cement fiberboard siding? What is that?
Cement fiberboard siding is made from waste wood and cement. It's very durable. It has a 50-year warranty on the material. It's essentially fireproof, and we use it all the time. It's one of our favorite exterior materials.
And this replaces aluminum siding?
Well, aluminum or vinyl, which we really don't want to be using. And
what's bad about those?
Well, vinyl is a petroleum product, and we just really would rather stay away from that.
And aluminum is a gigantic global endeavor.
Well, aluminum has high embodied energy. I mean, the good thing about it is it's recyclable. So that's a good positive about it. But the cement fiberboard actually looks and feels and ages just like wood. So it's replacing the cedar that you might normally have on the siding.
How widespread is the use of cement fiberboard?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's becoming a very popular material right now.
What about recycled roof shingles? You use those?
We do. They're made from recycled plastics, and they also have a very long life, like a 50-year plus lifespan. So they're pretty good. They're not inexpensive, though. And this is part of the problem is some of these green materials are equal in cost, but some of them are significantly more. And so you need to do, some people want to do a cost-benefit analysis to see if it's worth doing. To not have to replace your roof, basically have it last twice as long, that can be quite a value. It's of real value to people who want to stay in their home for a long time.
How often does the cost-benefit analysis just not work out for people? People come to you and say, I want a green home, I want to do it. And then you explain about this roof or that roof, and then suddenly they're whacking all this stuff, and it comes down to they didn't really want to pay for a green home.
I've been doing this long enough that I have that happen a lot, and we try and take care of that way at the beginning of a project because I know full well where we're headed with the cost of these things. And I try and prioritize with them what's most important and what makes the most sense. Because people will come to me wanting to do everything and not understanding the cost consequences of that. And so I say, let's forget about doing these, but we can pre-wire, let's say, for solar photovoltaic panels, even though they're expensive. Let's just put in a $100 conduit and pre-wire it, and we'll worry about that down the line. Either the price will come down or it's there, it's ready for you later. But the more focused we can be, the better off the project will be.
How much more does a really greenhouse cost? If you were could you flat out say, well, it costs 40% more, it costs 30% more?
It really depends on what aspects they want to go for. There's a kind of a healthy interior package that we sometimes do where we do low VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds. That's like when you open a can of paint and you smell, old kind of paint and it's got that heavy smell. We eliminate that. We do low VOC adhesives and finishes. You could do bamboo flooring, which is the same price essentially as oak. On and on. There's a whole set of those, and really they cost nothing more. So in that respect, it's not any big cost increase at all. But then when people want to get into, let's say, power production, with photovoltaics, to a lesser degree to solar thermal. Those add costs. If someone wants to do a radiant floor, I know how much that's going to add. Geothermal heating and cooling can get expensive too. And again, we do that cost benefit thing, and we know, for example, that solar thermal is about 5, 6, 7 year payback. And so it makes good sense to do that. The solar photovoltaics have a very long payback period, if even any, right now.
What about geothermal? It sounds like such a great solution for homes to create their own heating apparatus, but it costs a ton, and you've got to drill big holes, and I guess it's quite a deal.
There's a bigger upfront cost, and then there's a much lower operational cost. And the one problem is the operational cost is determined by the utility companies. So if they give a benefit for using this, which they have been in the past, it's great. But if they decide one day, you know what, we're not doing that anymore, it completely changes that equation, and it's a real problem. And they did do that 2 years ago, where they took out a very low price that they had in place for geothermal, and they've modified it. And so that changed that cost-benefit ratio.
So that's going to decrease the amount of geothermal in the area?
You know, it seems like it's pretty popular, and we get a lot of requests for it, and we've done quite a few of them. It may or may not make sense for a house. Again, I look at it, each one very specifically to see if it makes sense. But we are in a good climate for it because we have hot summers and cold winters, and the ground is kind of working opposite that. It's helping us out. It's much more of a problem if you're out in, Atlanta, where it's just hot and you're just constantly pulling cooling from the ground. You're going to outstrip it at some point.
You're listening to Worldview from Chicago Public Radio. I'm Jerome McDonnell, speaking with Nathan Kipnis. He's an architect who specializes in green design and is doing a talk on Design Eye for the Green Guy at the Midwest Renewable Energy Fair at Stevens Point, Wisconsin. He'll speak on Saturday at 2 and Sunday at 11. You've been to the Midwest Renewable Energy Fair before and presented there and talked. How do you like it?
I love it. It's to me, it's my secret weapon. I mean, I go to all these professional seminars and conferences, and they're very high-end and everything. And I love going there because these are people on a very limited budget that really make it work. And I'm always interested in how they're doing it. So that's one of my little competitive advantages that I like to utilize.
I'm always impressed. It's a really efficient event to go to. You go there, and they're running buses up there to get people there so they don't make a carbon impact, and they're also, everything you throw away, is being recycled and composted and the whole bit. It's fun.
Yeah, and I mean, you see the guys on the pedal bikes recycling the stuff. It's all being done correctly there. And it's very funny that it's probably the largest parking lot I've ever seen of hybrid cars in my life. But the buses, and there's people camping there. My joke is it's really like the Grateful Dead meets NASA. Very technical guys, couple hippies, and, a lot of people from Middle America wanting to learn about this.
How'd you get involved in green design? What happened?
From when I was a kid growing up, I remember the 1973 oil embargo, and it just was a big impact to me. Before that, I thought there was infinite oil. I just never thought about it. I was just a little kid, and when all of a sudden all this stuff started happening, it made no sense to me. I had to figure out what it was, and I already knew I wanted to be an architect. So that was already in the cards to me, but I thought in my own little way, how can I try and do something about this? And that stuck with me, and I went to school out west in Boulder, and they had a great solar program there. And then for graduate school at Arizona State, which has a world-renowned solar program.
Were there a lot of solar programs available for you at that time?
No, not really. There were maybe 4 or 5 colleges that really had anything going on with that. It was kind of a transitional time when I was in college in the mid-'80s. It was coming off of that 1979 oil problem, and by the time I got out in '85, Carter was out of the White House. The solar panels that he had put on were taken down. Reagan was in office, and it was back to oil, coal, and nuclear, and that was it. So I got out of school, and there was really nothing available at that time.
So it was tough starting an architecture practice where you were selling green design.
Yeah, and I worked for other firms initially, and I always talked about that, but it was not on too many people's radar at that point.
Now, do you get the feeling like everyone's going to do it? You're there with where the mainstream of design is going to be?
There's no doubt. I think if you look back in history, you see the 73 problem, the 79, and then in the mid-80s, and these were always kind of politically put down, and we went back to kind of status quo. But now it can't be put down, and I think it's a problem that we're going to have to address head on.
Nathan Kipnis, thanks a lot for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Evanston architect Nathan Kipnis specializes in green and sustainable home design, and he'll be speaking on Green Eye for the Design Guy at the Midwest Renewable Energy Association's 19th Annual Energy Fair. It starts on Friday and runs through the weekend in Custer, Wisconsin. Lots of people from around here go. There's a bus leaving from Woodfield Mall you can take and lower your carbon footprint in that haul up to Custer, Wisconsin to see the Midwest Renewable Energy Fair and their 19th annual festivities this weekend.